because then I add them, along with the judges' scores, I add them to their original essay scores.
Okay, got it.
So I'll be on that side,
All right.
or I'll be over here. I'm gonna text them and tell them they can bring the food earlier, because we're doing really good on time.
Great.
So, thank you, and
Oh, absolutely.
all things,
It's okay.
that's all things we can.
All good. 1 minute warning. We're going to ask you to go ahead and take your seats, and we're going to get started in about a minute on round 3.
And who are these? Oh, these? No, Jackson. I think this is Jackson. Yeah, these are mine. Jackson is one of them.
Judges, are we ready to begin? Certainly. Just give me the thumbs up when you're all set.
Just missing USS. Missing, if you have an extra copy of Jackson, I would like to have it.
He needs a copy of Jackson's
Okay, sure.
information.
Yes, I think she will give us the instructions. That's fine. We're missing one, but we'll share. Jackson is missing if you have it.
Okay, I need the list of. Where did the student list go?
Right here.
There we go.
So Tom, just say Tom. We'll do Tom go first.
Okay, that's my pen. Are you still there?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna go on first. We'll do. So Jackson, then Diego, and then Tanvi. Okay, we're good.
So Jackson first, okay.
All right. Okay, and I'm not advancing anything here, right? We're done with that. Fantastic. Okay, so while our judges prep, I'm going to go ahead and go through the procedure for round 3. For round 3, each of our finalists will step to the microphone and will speak for up to 3 minutes about their essay. The lead judge will then ask the first question, and the finalists will have 30 seconds to answer each judge's question. The judges will then complete their score sheet and acknowledge when they are ready to move on to the next candidate. And then I will call the next candidate. The order of our candidates will be Jackson, Diego, Amman, Marcelo, and then Tanvi. And you don't have to remember that. I'll let you know. When you come to the microphone, you need to be this close to it in order for everyone to hear you. I have not done a good job with that tonight, so my apologies. I'm a little vertically challenged, and I'm kind of far away from the mic. Does everybody have their 4x6 card with them, ready to go? Because you may have that with you at the microphone. Does anybody need to retrieve it from someone in the audience? Everyone good? Okay. Judges, are we ready to begin? Okay, so first up at the microphone is going to be Jackson.
My essay was an essay about the FCPS and the composting program that goes in some of the schools. It is a program called Lunch Out of Landfills. Well, after every single lunch period, the students, instead of throwing away all of their food waste, they will compost it by putting it in compost bins. This is set to reduce the food waste that's produced by every single school per year by up to 87%, and it is very good for the environment and the schools. This is a program that is, it helps the entirety of Frederick County to have a more healthy environment, and it promotes the students in a way to think better for the future of the environment and the earth, and it also it can help the school save money, because although it does cost some money to implement, it saves the schools money because they don't have to spend as much for the garbage stuff, and instead for cheaper composting. It's been proven that composting is a very beneficial thing to your wellness and your emotional well-being, and it helps people who are participating in group activities to motivate them to do other group activities, such as being in a public garden, and it helps people, students also learn about composting and the science behind it. So it educates students, and it helps the school and the county as a whole. That's all.
Okay, Jackson, you're going to stay up there because they're going to ask you some questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackson. I appreciate your comments about your essay. I don't know if this question is for you or for me, but you're going to give me a good answer. How can the government help you with this?
The government can help us with this through the local government by assisting in funding and getting representatives such as people from the program Lunch Out of Landfills to help the schools implement this service in all of their lunches.
How could you convince your fellow students to be a part of this?
We could show them the benefits of this not only on their school and their well-being as a person. It can help them with how they function within a group, because it is a group activity that involves helping the entire school, and it is a good thing for all the students to participate in.
Jackson, you had mentioned about carbon footprint. So how do you see as a corporate sector to help reducing the carbon footprint? And other application for compost or recycle, about thinking about renewable energy. What's your thought on those bits?
Can you say the question again?
Sure. So the larger sectors as a corporate, just think of Apple, Google, and others. They are committed to reduce the carbon footprint. That's the question number one. What is your input about engaging your thoughts with the corporate world?
Well, the way that the composting can help reduce the carbon footprint is because when you compost something, it helps. It acts as a natural fertilizer for the soil, and it helps grow more trees, which in turn reduce the carbon footprint.
Thank you. Second part of the question is about, have you thought or have any thoughts on renewable energy? To use the compost towards the renewable energy?
I think that renewable energy is a very good future for the world of energy, and it can also work as in a way such as solar panels that can also provide energy for the schools, and wind energy. There's lots of different types of renewable energy that I do think are very beneficial for the world.
Any other questions from our judging panel?
Jackson, you did a wonderful job with your essay and your presentation, and your evidence was so compelling. I wonder if you could share with us why you think more schools aren't using this strategy based on the compelling evidence that you've shared.
I think that the reason that most schools are not using this is because of the fact that they simply don't really know about this, because it hasn't been educated throughout the schooling curriculum very well. So it hasn't been very well, there's not much awareness on this issue and how it can be solved so easily.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Jackson. You can return to your seat.
Thank you.
Next to the microphone is Diego.
Hi there, hello. My essay was about the lack of teachers applying for a job in schools. First of all, over the last few years, there has been a rise of the population of Frederick, and that would mean also a rise in the enrollment of students. You'd think that this would mean a rise in teacher applications for schools. However, this is not the case. It has actually gone down over the last few years substantially. This has been because being a teacher is a challenging job and requires a lot of dedication towards the students. Something the FCPS has been doing to try to prevent this has been increasing the budget of FCPS. They have increased it to $933 million, and $29.3 million have gone to a raise for teachers, which would be a 6% raise for the teachers. A way that us as citizens, we can help is fundraising and donating to teachers for materials. Another way is writing or voting for political members that can address this situation further. And we can also grow a further appreciation of teachers in our schools. That's my thing.
Thank you, Diego. And we'll take our first question from our judges.
Good evening. Thank you so much for advocating for our teachers. I have a question for you. People are often willing to pay for what they value. What ideas do you have to create a culture of appreciation for our teachers?
Well, first of all, they teach our children and us everything we know. From schools, teachers are basically everywhere, and they can mostly be seen in schools. They can show us everything we know.
Anyone else have questions?
You did a great job and gave us a compelling argument for advocating for teachers.
Thank you.
The point I particularly liked was ways in which we could create a culture of appreciation for teachers, particularly starting with the students. So I'm wondering if you could give us a few more specific details about your ideas of how students could be stronger advocates for teachers.
Well, something that I've seen personally is a large amount of disrespect in certain students at my school. And that isn't really helping the idea of applying to become a teacher. It gives off a bad idea. And if children were like nicer and more respectful to if students were nicer to teachers, that could help a raise in teachers in our community. Is that it?
Diego,
Yes.
nowadays the responsibility of teachers in school is compounded because of the number of students that they have to teach and at the same time instill discipline. So how do you think that teachers should be compensated by the general public and also by government or state government?
Could you please repeat the question?
Yes.
I apologize.
Teachers are taking on more responsibilities other than teaching the subject matter. They are also responsible for keeping order in the classroom and keeping discipline. So how are teachers supposed to be compensated for this extra responsibility on their shoulders?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not 100% sure about the idea. That seems like a question that would require several answers, and of which I do not have.
Diego, I want to kind of go off this
Yes.
with the question that just was asked. You discussed particularly around shortages of teachers, I won't say shortages of teachers, but we know here, particularly in the state of Maryland across the country, that there's a competition in terms for school jurisdictions for teachers. What is another way besides compensation to incentivize teaching?
Could you rearrange the question? I'm sorry.
Incentivizing, such as sign-on bonuses, such as housing allowances, such as...
Yeah. Something that you actually just said, FCPS is trying to do, give bonuses and, like I said in my speech, raises to teachers who are willing to become a teacher, to compensate.
Jump right in here. So there are other things that are challenging for teachers these days, whether it's a safety in the school issue or the prevalence of COVID or other kinds of challenges that fall outside of the control of school systems. Do you have any ideas or thoughts about how we can make being a teacher, being an educator, a more appealing field for people, an occupation that people want to go into beyond compensation or some of these other things that we've already spoken about?
Yeah. So I don't really have any separate ideas, seeing as I said, I try to say everything that I could, but we could try to develop a stronger appreciation for teachers in schools as students as well. So it could make the idea of being a teacher more enjoyable and just make it better.
Thank you. Next up will be Amman. Go ahead and move the microphone up so everyone can hear you. You want it? It's off. Okay. Right here so everyone can hear you.
In 2021, there were 80,411 deaths due to the opioid crisis. That equates to about over 200 deaths every day. This is a lot of deaths in our community, and we cannot stop this. I suggest having starting a group in my school that'll use grassroots movements to help curb this epidemic. We will try to identify affected communities to give them the aid that they need, as well as join the government and nonprofit organizations to try to allot aid where it is needed. We also plan on spreading awareness so people can know about the signs of opioid addiction and tell people and get help for people that they know. With this, we can also remove the stigma of addiction, which sadly kills a lot more people than it should. And I also plan on petitioning for resources inside our school. Now, opioids are a big problem, so I urge you all to join me so we can curb this epidemic.
Amman, thank you for your essay. I enjoyed your solutions, and most of all, I enjoyed your passion that came across in your essay about this issue. What do you think will be the biggest challenge to building a solution to the opioid epidemic?
I believe the biggest problem will be convincing people that opioids are a problem. Because a lot of people have the mentality that if they don't see it, they don't know it's there. And I feel like that'll be a problem because if you don't believe in the cause, why would you donate to it, donate your time, money, whatever. So I feel like trying to convince people that this is a problem that they need to know and help fight against would be a problem.
Well, among your peers, your friends in school, how does peer pressure influence the use of opioid, for instance, among adolescents or youth in school?
As I talked about before, the stigma of addiction is very large. People, if you are addicted, many people, like you said, refrain from getting help because they feel like they'll be judged by the community. And this is a problem that we are hoping to solve that me and my group of people are hoping to solve by spreading awareness and telling people that it's okay to get help.
So to piggyback on his question about peer pressure, What are your thoughts about reverse peer pressure? Like, what things do you think you could truly do to keep your friends and your peers from getting involved with opioids?
I believe that the fastest way to do this and the easiest is to show them what happens when people get addicted. Like you can see, like they like lose money, they lose time, friends, and their lives are not the way that their lives are not lived to the full extent that they could. So I feel like showing that to them will help, telling them that it's not bad.
Third question, Amman. This is a great subject we should be discussing going forward for the youth. For the education, career, we discussed many, many other things, but this one definitely needs to be solved today, not to wait till tomorrow.
Thank you.
So, others ask a reason why people get into this. What is your study? What is your opinion? Then secondary is how to solve. Why people are getting into this? What is a peer pressure? I understand. What are the other causes people are getting habitual or using the opioid?
A pretty big reason of why people use opioids is due to pain. So they take, like they're prescribed it by the doctor and they take it, it slowly stops wearing off because they build resistance and they take more and more because the opioids help them live a normal life, and they know that once they're off of them, whatever was causing them pain, it'll hurt, and they'll also have withdrawal symptoms. So they'll continue using them and they won't want to get help because, as I said before, the stigma of addiction.
So I'm asking specifically about the youth, not the adults. How we can stop this opioids into the youth? How can we stop that? So what are the reasons they are going? Pain is most likely adults, right? Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So I'm talking about the youth, the new generation. Why are they going towards that? And what are the root cause of that?
It could be peer pressure, like people around them are doing opioids and they want to do it too. It could also, it's mostly peer pressure, yeah.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. All right, next up is Marcelo.
Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing? Judges? I am here to talk about what my essay was about, which was the urbanization of farmland in Frederick County. So allow me to set the stage. 1745, Daniel Dullany founds Frederick County. In an area between Sugarloaf Mountain and Catoctin Mountain, it becomes sort of a hotspot of sorts for residents to farm and herd cattle because of the rich and nutritious soil. This soil is in fact why the land is valued at $4,000 more per acre than the national average. Now, if the soil is so rich, what does that mean? That there's more food, right? More food, more people. And that means more people coming into the county. But what does that exactly mean? That means you'll need more houses, more schools, more hospitals. And urban developers help fix that problem. They come along and build those houses, but they need land to build them on, so they buy from the farmers. And those farmers, they take that offer, considering it more profitable to sell than to farm on that land. And this isn't necessarily bad, because we do need houses. We do need all those buildings to help our community function. But what happens when all the farmers sell their land? We won't have enough food to support our county. So, so I'm sure you're all wondering, how could we fix this? Well, I have a few ideas. First, we could help support our farmers in local farmers markets, buy the products that they produce. Second of all, I think that we should make sure that the buildings that the urban developers make is eco-friendly, as in like a use of renewable energy and renewable resources and such. And last of all, I believe that we should vote for political leaders that will reflect these ideals and find the balance between the urban and the farmland, to find that balance. Thank you very much.
Marcelo, thank you. You presented some compelling arguments about this delicate balance between urban development and farmland preservation, so thank you. And you ended your monologue with 3 concrete actions. And I just want to make sure I recap those, because I'm going to ask you, from your vantage point as a student, which one would be a priority for you. First, you said supporting local farmers markets. Second, you said pressuring developers to build more eco-friendly housing. And third, electing representatives that would support these 2 efforts. So
Yes.
of those 3 things, if we held your feet to the fire, which one would be a priority for you and why?
So as a student myself, I would put as a priority the first one, supporting farmers in local farmers markets, as like I can't really vote yet. And so I don't really have an influence on the government leaders or the urban developers, not yet at least, not yet. So I feel the best I can do, the most I can do, is help support the farmers by buying the produce.
And I will tell you, do not underestimate your influence.
Thank you.
Other questions?
What would you say to someone who believes that urban development is in fact an important factor in whether or not there'll be a supportive infrastructure for agriculture to exist?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question real quick?
I'll try. I don't know if this mic is, okay, there, okay. What would you say to people who think that urban development is an important factor and should be promoted in order to create an infrastructure in which agriculture has a marketplace, has an infrastructure, has a governmental funding base for initiatives that supports it?
Well, in a way it is, because for urban development to have, with urban development, there's more houses and stuff that which attract a population, and which the farm helps support. So, in a way I do agree with them, because the farm helps support the urban developers, and the urban developers help house the clients, in a way, of the farms. So it's a mutual benefit. You're welcome. Yes?
You have raised a very, very good question about this issue right here in Frederick. I moved here in 1998, and the development that is going on around Frederick is humongous. And some of the farmland, you can see them being eaten up by developers just right before your own eyes. So these two have to coexist, the farmland and developers. In the future, do you think science can play a role in moving this coexistence into high gear for the future? Do you think science can help the farmers?
Yes, actually, I do think it can help because with science, it has been able to like speed the growth of crops, and with the growth of crops, eventually, like not now at least, but in the near or distant future, like crops could grow quickly as so we need less farmland and more space for houses and more people to feed.
In your essay, you talk about farm production loss. Can you discuss with us in regards to particularly farming and health aspects, the benefit of having healthy foods from farmland and crops?
I'm sorry, that was, could you rephrase that?
Yes, you mentioned in your essay about production laws,
Uh-huh.
farming production laws. Can you talk about the importance of farming and health for us as a society, particularly here in Frederick County?
Yeah, of course. So there's like the importance of farming, like straightly connect to the population, because the more food that a certain region has, the more people it will attract to it. Like in my essay, I stated that from 1970 to 80, there is a sharp increase in population. This was because of how I mentioned like how the region had such rich soil, and it made a lot of food. Like it was able to create so much food, so it attracted a lot of people. Did that answer your question?
So one of the things in your essay you discuss is that Frederick County has the vast array of farmland, the most farmland, particularly here in Maryland. Mm-hmm. And in terms of processed foods and farming foods, can you talk about in terms of why it's important for us to maintain farmland in terms of for our health, as opposed to processed foods, as opposed to foods that may not be healthy for us?
Now I understand you. Thank you. The importance of farmed foods is that it contains many nutrients for us that like processed foods just don't have. I mean, what kind of nutrients are you going to get from like a McDonald's burger compared to like a salad? It's a pretty big difference. And the more like healthy food we have, while I don't think it'll compare to the amount of junk food we have, the more we have, the better, because the more healthy our area is, I believe it's the better. Is that all?
So I have a question.
Yes, of course.
So this is very critical issue that you have raised. I agree with you some extent, but from many aspects I disagree with you. The growth, right? Are you against the growth? Are you in favor of the growth? And I'll elaborate that so I get the exact your feedback on it. The growth is good for economy, for the country, and for everyone. The issue is a proper urban planning is the issue we have. And so the question I'm coming towards the farming. The farming what we are doing in USA, we need to modernize. Have you given any thoughts? And I'll give you one example. Irrigation. If you think about Israel, they have the most advanced farming technology. They can produce, I cannot say much because I'm not a farmer, but definitely it can produce much, much higher production of the crop than we are producing in the United States. Similar one in Japan. So what are your thoughts about focusing more about advanced farming technology or restricting the growth?
Me personally, I'm all for the growth because, like, if we get more advanced farming technology, like there are like many people that are starving, and if we use those advanced technologies here in the U.S., we could apply those to our farms, create more food, more than we need, and help other people. Did that answer your question, or no?
Somewhat you did, but not fully, but it's okay. I understand it's much more depth question that what you have write up, but give some thoughts on it, do some study and do the research. The growth is good for the country. Why you are here, I'm here, because of the growth. And growth is good, but it should be more urban planning is required, not limited in Frederick County, but entire state of Maryland is required to have a more urban planning. Okay?
Yeah.
When you go to Northern Virginia, you can see it's a different growth than what you see here.
Do we have any other questions from our judges? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Tanvi.
Hi, my name is Tanvi, and my essay was about housing and education equality. So as each day passes, the dream or even need of owning a house is definitely rising, but it is slipping further and further away from many low-income families around Maryland and around the whole nation because of the skyrocketing cost of housing that has made living affordably a distant reality. So something that really goes hand in hand with the issue of affordable housing is educational equality, because the school systems in communities with higher pricing houses tend to have better school systems, and that means that the low-income communities don't have the best school systems. So social justice principles like the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment basically suggests that, that everyone should have equal access to public education as well as a safe and affordable housing system. So a solution to this is that the community as well as local government officials can all work together and create grants as well as subsidies for low-income families and the landowners. So there can also be policy changes and programs for first-time homeowners. So a big part of my essay was something Nelson Mandela said, was that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And I believe that all the kids should get the equal opportunity to use this weapon of education, and they can use that to write their own story.
Okay. And questions from the judges.
Question is very simple. How do you define affordable housing?
Can you please repeat the question?
How do you define affordable housing?
Okay, so affordable housing, I think the definition of that is definitely subjective to different people, because everyone has different incomes in their families, and that's the difference between for one person, a certain budget of housing can be really expensive or really high, but for someone that can be perfect. So it's definitely really subjective.
Okay, in your essay you mentioned in particular grants for low-income populations. What do you define as low income?
So I think there is definitely a criteria about who fits into low income. People probably with the lower wages, they fit in that, and yeah, I think there's like a certain criteria that needs to be met to fit low income.
So Tanvi, how can people like you and the students, who should they appeal to in order to discuss this issue and effectively deal with it? Because this issue is an issue that comes home to the family. Housing, affordable housing, that you tied in with success in education. So who do you think you and your classmates and your schoolmates can petition in order to discuss this problem? Is it local government? Is it county government, state government, or federal government?
So I definitely think that there can be different levels of the solution, but I think it all starts in our own communities. So I think the first step would be contacting people like the HOA, the homeowners or association, because they control a lot of things relating to housing and neighborhoods. So I think probably a good idea would be asking them their opinions and further asking local representatives and the local government. And then once there's a plan established and more people are on board, then that can move on further to things like the federal government to make it even bigger.
So Tanvi, the question is, since you're from the middle school, the value of the house, is it related with your school district? And if it is, then how can you fix it? For an example, I'll give you one simple example. I'm not sure where do you live, but if you're residing in a Walkersville school district, the same house you pick up and put it in Ironsville or put it in Middletown, the house value is different, right?
Yeah.
So why we do not fix, first of all, a school system to equality for the housing purpose?
So I think that even if we tried to fix the school system, I think that the prices of houses are very, like these two things are very dependent on one another. So you would have to change one thing to affect the other. But in terms of school system, there are definitely some programs for more low-income kids who, for example, there's reduced price lunches, and that helps them out. But I think there needs to be more awareness in the school systems because there's definitely not many people who talk about the issue of low-income families in our schools.
The reason why, because, for example, if your parents decide to move from Howard County or Montgomery County, first thing they will look at is school district, correct?
Yeah.
And that's what impact the value of the house, because there is a high demand and low shortage, low availability, value pricing going up. So why we do not attempt at least to focus on the school system and have a similar school. Frederick County School Board is such a small, right? Why we cannot work on that direction? That's a question I'm asking.
Okay. Can you repeat like the second part of the question again?
You cannot fix the value of the house.
Yeah.
The variables of house value, the primary reason, one of the reason is the school district. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how and why we cannot go and try to fix the school district of Parvana or Iamsville or Middletown and mix and match the ball and make it equal?
So I think there's a lot of things that go into that, but I think we can't really change the school systems because there's so many different people that go into it, and there would have to be a lot of people that needs to agree to those things, and I feel like a lot of people wouldn't agree with this idea of incorporating low-income people because people have a lot of opinions on that, and it's a pretty controversial topic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Tanvi, I'm going to pivot from housing questions to policy questions. So in your essay, you talked about how there are current laws and legislation that try to address the issue that you focused on in your essay of affordable housing. But you also went on to say that those policies, in your opinion, in your assessment, are ineffective. So share with me, if you will, do we need to strengthen the enforcement of those policies or change the policies? And if your answer is change the policies, then in what way? To what end?
So in my opinion, the policies do need to change a little bit because I think that most of the policies create something where they create a different community for just low-income families. And when all of them are together, that means that in total there's like low funding in the schools, but the solution to that would probably incorporating those low-income families within our communities to make it distributed evenly and more equal.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. So at this time, it's going to take a few minutes to do some calculations. I'm going to invite all of the finalists, when I tell you to do so, to take your tablets and to return to your seats in the audience. But before you do so, let's give them a big round of applause for all that they have done. We've heard some really, really wonderful topics, and I challenge all of you to put your ideas into action, because that's what civic engagement is really about. It's about being informed, empowered, and participatory members of our society. And before you return to your seats in the audience, we're going to get one final picture of you. If we could have our contestants stand in front of the screen. Is that where you want them? We'll direct you. Go ahead. Sure. Yes, sir. Everyone's gone back to their seats, and then we'll call up the winners, those who won. And then we'll call them up for their awards. We just don't want to kind of send them out to Okay. Yeah, it would be Gabby. Yeah, do you want to pop in there and let her know? Okay. You want to go ahead and slide out this way? Thank you. Tanvi, you can grab your tablet and slide back to your seat. No, I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Okay.
Okay, folks, if you would go ahead and return to your seats, in about 2 minutes, I think we'll be ready to do final presentation. As far as tablets go, Ms. Streeton will be sending an email that will give you instructions on how to log into your tablet after you leave here. So look for that email tomorrow. Okay? So we're gonna move into the final phase here in just a minute. I'm going to turn the microphone and the program back over to Debbie so that she can conclude our program with our prizes. Again, on behalf of Frederick County Public Schools, I want to thank the Chamber for sponsoring this invaluable program for all of you. We look forward to partnering with you again next year to bring this program to you. And to Hood College, who is always such a gracious host for us, thank you. To our judges, thank you for taking your time. To our contestants, thank you for your efforts. Parents, thank you for yours as well. Let's give them one more round of applause and thank you for this evening.
Thank you, Colleen, for everything tonight. All right, folks, I want to say congratulations to everybody. Thank you for writing your essays and participating and being here. We're going to start with our third place. Third place goes to Jackson Mulligan. Second place goes to Tanvi Chaturvedi. First place goes to Marcelo Tellez. Stay there for some pictures. I do want to thank we had the Great Frederick Fair, we had Brewster's, we had Starvin' Marvin's Pizza, we had the Frederick Keys, and South Mountain Creamery, all donated items for all of the finalists and additional ones for first, second, and third place. So I want to thank everybody very much. What else do you want? You're good? Okay. Folks, that concludes our program. I want to thank all of our sponsors, finalists, families, the U.S. Chamber, Catherine, Deanna, Whitney, our board, my chamber staff and teammates. They are just amazing. Couldn't have done it without them. Thank you very much.